Happy Labor Day weekend, everybody. Baseball is beginning to get really hot for the playoff chase. We have one team in town that's trying to get a playoff position, and another one that doesn't know what they're doing as far as or running the organization. So we got a new general manager this week for the White Sox, Chris Getz, who was a player previously for them and was head of their minor league development program at this point. So willing to give him another chance, but it was just such a really quick hire and didn't really seem like Jerry, the owner, was really taking the time to be able to try and find maybe the right people to take over and run the organization. I know he wants immediate results, and he's very much of the mindset of getting people that he is familiar with, but I thought it was a little bit of a rush job, but I still wish Chris Getz the best. All right, so today is actually my anniversary, so I had a little bit of a tease there about getting a hammer for my anniversary. This is actually something I purchased for myself. It wasn't a gift for me from my wife, so I just wanted to kind of clarify that. As you can see before you, we have the Topps Giants cards once again. The set itself has 5 members of the 500 home run club, 4 of which you kind of see before you here with Mantle, Robinson, Mays, and Killebrew. So had one outstanding. I think the only other player that played during this time it's missing from the set that had 500 home runs for the career, actually 2, were McCovey and Ernie Banks. We have at least Banks kind of featured a little bit on the book cover here. But without further ado, the player I actually wanted to be able to kind of present here was, in my last video, it was down to 4 cards. Well, now I'm a little further along with completing the set because I was able to pick up Hank Aaron this week. Now, this is actually a really sharp 5. It's off center, and that's what really brought the grade down overall for the card, but the back is almost completely white. When you look at these cards, often you see a significant yellowing on the card. This one is pretty white as you kind of read the back here, and it kind of talks about him winning the batting title, I believe the previous season, if I'm not mistaken. Hank Aaron, I don't know what more we need to kind of say about him as a player. Haven't really featured him on the channel before, but he's definitely well known in the annals of baseball. Previously the home run champion, but he still holds 3 other career records, which would be the most runs batted in and also total bases and also career extra base hits. Inducted in the Hall of Fame in '82, his 25 All-Star appearances, won 1 World Series while in Milwaukee, 1 MVP award, 3 Gold Glove awards, batting title twice, actually were 56-59, led the league in home runs 4 times, RBIs 4 times, just an all-time great and legend. One of my all-time favorite players. I'm happy to be able to kind of add this in with the Giant set here. So, and actually those were not the only ones I picked up for the set, so actually made a little bit more progress this past week. I've got a couple short prints for the set, and as you're familiar, anybody who's familiar put the set together, there's a couple short prints within the set. The big names that you would see are Sandy Koufax and Willie Mays, but then the other ones are a bunch of common players, but you pay a little bit more for them, but actually didn't have to pay too much for this. One of them is Wayne Causey, which I don't really know much about. He played for, I believe, 11 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. So he had a pretty lengthy career, starting in the 50s and ended towards the end of the 60s, mostly with Kansas City Athletics, but he also played with parts with Baltimore, the Chicago White Sox, the Angels, and even with the Braves briefly. He was a left-handed hitter, threw right-handed. He was another one of the bonus babies, just like Sandy Koufax was, but didn't really mount to much. He did get MVP votes both in '63 and '64, so he had kind of career years during that time, but they still weren't really anything to get too excited about as far as other players of that era. But Kansas City was a really thin team at that time, so when they kind of picked the cards for the set, they wanted to feature 3 All-Stars. Oh my God, the camera almost fell. 3 All-Stars from each team for that time, so I'm trying to move the camera back here so it doesn't do that. And I'll actually kind of make sure that I'll position my feet so I can hold the stand a little bit better so it won't tip. So Kansas City didn't really have much to choose from. I think Rocky Colavito was another one that was in there, but it was kind of a stretch kind of pulling the All-Stars from the rest of the team for Kansas City. And you see that a lot during the set in there. But Hank Aaron was the last Hall of Famer I needed for it. So I'm pretty happy to have that done. This set's a lot of fun because I think there are about every 3rd player is a Hall of Fame player. So Wayne Causey was one of the short prints I had to pick up, not a Hall of Fame player. And then I got the last card for the set, which is also a short print. A name a little bit more familiar to baseball fans of the 50s and 60s, and also baseball fans in Chicago, which is Bill, also known as Moose Skowron, who really made his name with the New York Yankees of the 1950s and early 60s. Was a part of, I believe, 4 championship teams, if I'm not mistaken, in his career. One of his most noted ones, actually, was when he 5 World Series champions, actually 4 with the Yankees. But his last one was actually against the Yankees. So he won 3 in a row in 61, 62, and 63, but the Yankees didn't win the World Series in 63. He was actually acquired by the Los Angeles Dodgers during the season. He actually went on to beat his former team in the World Series that year. Played briefly with Washington. In fact, the card on the back even mentions that he was moved on to the White Sox, where he played for about 2.5 seasons before he wrapped things up at the end of the 1967 season with the California Angels. 8-time All-Star. He definitely was known for being a pretty consistent hitter as far as like having averages. His career average is 282. He had over 300 a few times in his career. Definitely had some pop, hit over 200 home runs and drove in just under 900 in his career, and definitely supplemented the team pretty well in New York when he played there. Locally, he actually is kind of a local softball legend. He's actually from the Chicago area and actually returned to the Chicago area after his career and did a lot of work for the White Sox in the public relations department. I remember him being interviewed a lot when I was younger, just talking about his time in baseball in the 1950s and 60s, because he was such an entertaining interview. And people just kind of gravitated towards him because he had that kind of personality. He got his nickname because his father, when he was younger, back in, I think, in probably the 40s, probably would make the most sense, gave him a haircut to make him kind of look like Benito Mussolini. So his family called him Mussolini and later just called him Moose for short, which is a nickname that stuck with him throughout his life at that point. So, but another reason he's really famous here in the area is because he kind of became a local softball legend after his career with the local 16-inch softball, which is something that's pretty unique and famous to the Chicagoland area. So that's how he kind of spent his rec time when he came here in Chicago and resided here before he later on passed on, and I think just after the turn of the 2000s. He actually lived not too far from me here. I've never had a chance to meet him, though, but he definitely was known to be a very engaging individual to fans. So that's what I have to show you guys. Again, the acquisitions are 2 short prints and also the hammer. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. I'll be back soon with a modern mail day.